Bonsoir. Je présente un article très historique dans le système de communication français, le Matracom M05 terminal portátil Minitel. Si vidéo continue en anglais, pour mon très petit peu français. So, bonsoir, and today I am presenting a piece of extremely rare and historical French communications technology, which some of you those who are familiar with your historical keyboards may actually recognise what this is and what it is for, certainly by looking at the function buttons there. But this is a portable Minitel terminal from the French precursor to the modern day internet. And as you can see, I have literally just unwrapped it and inspected it. It is an extraordinarily beautiful piece of equipment. I mean, it is made in France, so that stands to reason. If it was made in the UK, it would, well, if it was made in the UK, then all of these keys would be in English, and the A, the Q, the Z and the W would be in different locations. Obviously, because this was designed for a French system, the keyboard, in conformance with the fact that it is targeted towards French users, is laid out in French, a layout that I personally prefer. But as can be seen, we have a standard AZERTY keyboard here. Nice sounding membrane based keys. As you can see, we have our connection and terminate button here. We have our function and dual shift key here. Then, working through the function keys in English, we have summary and guide, which would take you to the a designated Minitel usage guide. Then you have cancellation. Correct. That's cancel. That's correct. Correction, obviously. Return, the equivalent of the modern internet browser back button. Suite, which is proceed. Répétition is repeat, obviously, and envoy, literally meaning send, would be the same as the submit button on a standard HTML form. But this is the M05 portable Minitel terminal. As I said, it's an absolutely beautiful piece of equipment. The hinge on this one is very stiff. I mean, I believe this has probably been stored for about 20 years in an attic or something, and it literally came up on eBay when I was searching for Minitel terminals. I said I have to have this because it will be such a rare piece of equipment. Unlike the Minitel terminal, right, I'm just going to quickly, I'm not going to be moving the device around too much because I'm I'm handling it pretty much with kid gloves, but I am going to do a quick tour. I've already shown the keyboard. You can see the access cover that I've left popped off here because you would normally release that with a flat-bladed screwdriver, and I don't want to do the clips too much. But I'm going to lift this up here. This is the easier of the two covers to remove, and as you can see, inside here we have a battery compartment. This is not to operate the device. This battery compartment holds batteries that retain the device memory, because the device memory was primarily the device was basically battery backed up RAM. That was how your storage worked in this. Under this other cover here, I've not been able to. It has another flat blade screwdriver release port here, but although I have tried to remove it, it feels a little too stiff and a little too clipped in for my liking, so I don't want to try and force it up. But what I have been able to see from the gap in the plastic that showed when I lifted it up is that there is an EEPROM under here, standard dual inline package EEPROM, which will have the firmware for this device stored upon it. So when the device is started up, the processor will load the contents of that EEPROM, the EEPROM that's under here, will be loaded into memory and then executed from memory, and that is how this device will start up and function. It's much like the bootloader on your modern Android device. I will just place this back here just for presentation purposes. I am a terrible videographer, and my being perpetually silenced across YouTube just because homosexual people only get voice if they're lucky enough to be born after 1992 in my country. Around the back we do have 4 ports, which again I don't want to handle this too much at this stage, but if I remember, in fact I will, if I can, right, so yeah, starting from this side. Okay, there are 4 ports, 2 on each side of the device. We have the car phone port, which you connect to your in-car telephone or a mobile telephone, and that allows you to use this device quite literally out in the field for as long as your batteries last, bearing in mind that this might be drivable from the batteries, but it normally takes 12 volt in-car, in-home, in-office power supply. Next to that port on the back we have the regular telephone jack, which is how you plug it into the telephone network. So you would come into an office, you'd take a telephone cable with an RJ11 connector on the device end and the standard 6-pin PTT blade plug on the other end. Connect them together, and then this would be able to dial into Minitel through the telephone network. Here we have a 12 volt barrel jack plug, which I'm not certain of the polarity. It is marked 12 volts dash, but the dash may indicate direct current or courant continu rather than being an indication of a negative tip. And finally here we have the standard DIN5 Minitel accessory port, primarily used for connecting printers, but can also be used for connecting other devices, such as, I believe there were devices designed to store Minitel pages, so you would plug your Minitel terminal into such a device, and then when you would basically use the printing functions to send a copy of that page out of this port to the device that would store it and then allow you to recall it later on without having to connect. Now, the thing is that these terminals are going to be extremely rare. This one has a serial number of just 00321, and these terminals would have been issued to these, unlike the regular terminals that were issued freely to every PTT subscriber throughout France. These terminals were commercial items. They were sold primarily to businesses that would have paid a tremendous amount of money. These, I haven't been able to see any pricing information for this, but I would estimate that at the time this was offered for sale in 1994-95, they would have cost at least 10,000 francs, which in UK sterling at the time would have been about £1,000, or adjusted for inflation, that's about £2,500 in today's money. So it would be £2,500, approximately €2,800, or approximately $4,000 US. That's assuming I've got my conversion factors right. These terminals would have been issued only really to the highest ranking business executives or people who were working outside France and who needed a way of accessing Minitel carriage services from outside France. So for example, if like today, if you had this device in the UK, you would plug it into the UK telephone network, dial the international access number for Minitel, and then once you are connected to Minitel, the terminal would allow you to then interface with the service that you access over Minitel, such as your company's mainframe or your company's online support guides. These terminals were extremely expensive. They were never issued free to, unlike the desktop Minitel terminals that you can find all over eBay for about €10-20, were freely issued to people. But it was that free issue of in-home terminals as a substitute for the telephone directory that really made Minitel take off. And it led to the creation of these devices. And as I said, this one has a serial number of just 321. I mean, I don't think many more than 1,000 or 2,000 of these devices were probably produced, and probably no more than 1,000 sold at the outside. So the other thing is that, as I will show, that I am currently in a country to the west of France, which sadly doesn't have the same regard for human rights that France does. This device, I mean, it is quite possible that this is the only Matracom M05 Portatel Minitel terminal in the entire UK. And so even though I have had possibly one of the worst existences you can have, I've been suffered to the worst abuse and abandonment and throwing away just because I happen to be a person with autistic spectrum disorder, who is homosexual, and who does not follow the Christian faith and does not identify with the Christian faith, and because he was born before 1992, it seems that he can be mistreated. It makes me a little bit happier that I may be the only person anywhere in the UK to have one of these. So it's an absolutely beautiful piece of equipment. I am hoping that I will be able to gently and carefully inspect it, clean up the battery compartment, because you may have seen that when this was put away, it was obviously put away with the batteries in. The terminals are highly corroded, so that was 6 volts across them for far longer than they were designed for. I mean, these terminals aren't so bad. The compartment itself is surprisingly clean, so it must have had a good brand of batteries in it, because cheaper batteries would have just leaked all over the place and would have probably destroyed the plastics too. But yeah, this is the Matracom M05 portable Minitel terminal, a device made in France, generally issued to only the highest ranking business executives in France and those who were stationed outside of France who needed access to Minitel, remembering that most executives in France would have just been issued a telephone card and told to use a public Minitel terminal, remembering that information security concerns were much fewer back then than they are today. And I have to say to the gentleman who sold me this, Monsieur, merci très beaucoup. C'est bon, c'est vent, c'est un cadeau de le cœur. Malheureusement, j'ai très petit peu français. J'aime cet article et pour un article historique, et le seul in le Royaume-Uni, I am so very happy. Sir, thank you so much for selling me this. You have made me one of the happiest people you can imagine. Merci très beaucoup. Thank you so very much.